Hi, welcome to what we are calling Classic Bookmark. When we started shooting these interviews in the spring of 1988, we had no idea the show would go on for 30 years, with over 400 episodes. To celebrate and mark this achievement, we have selected 15 shows. Choosing was difficult. Most of the writers chosen, like Horton Foote and Ray Bradbury, are deceased. Others, like Toni Morrison, the Nobel Prize winner, are perfectly well, but I do not think we will be lucky enough to have them on the show again. We purposely did not include some bookmark favorites like Rick Bragg, Winston Groom, Sina Jeter Naslund, Brad Watson, Daniel Wallace, Michelle Richmond, and others, since we plan to visit with them regularly in the future. Viewers will notice that the technology has improved considerably in 30 years. We've cleaned these up the best we could. These first 30 years have been a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy watching these as much as I did making them. Ernest Gaines's books may be more famous than he is. Everyone knows the Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, but they think she wrote it. In fact, Miss Jane Pittman was the creation of this Louisiana native who writes serious, important, yet readable books. All of them, including A Lesson Before Dying, A Gathering of Old Men, and In My Father's House, are set in the sugarcane plantation country of Louisiana where Gaines grew up. But the world of Ernest Gaines's childhood is gone. For him, it exists now only in his novels and short stories.
Only the cemetery is there now. And just as I wrote about it in A Gathering of Old Men, the sugar cane is within 10, 15 feet of the cemetery. So it's surrounded by sugar cane fields. And but there's a road that takes you to the cemetery. So that's the only thing there now left of the people. The old houses are gone. The land has been plowed under. Now you have crops there, soybeans, sugarcane, things like that there now.
Yeah, that's a good scene in A Gathering of Old Men,
Yeah.
where the fear is not that the cane is going to come to the edge of the cemetery, but that the cane is going to, that the plows are going to come right over the graves.
Yeah, well, my wife and I for the last 10 years have fought and begged the people who own the plantation. And so now that we have the cemetery in our control now, so it is ours now to take care for the rest of time. But we've been working at that. So we do most of our work there. When I'm not at the university there, we get in the car, and we'll go to the cemetery, which is about an hour and 15 minutes to drive from where we are living in Lafayette to the old place. We were there just about a week ago.
That's right. Well, that's good, because that's the kind of thing that people talk in the book.
Yes.
People talk about that's what's needed. Well, you've gone ahead and
we've done
it yourself.
We've done it, yes.
Wonderful.
We've done it.
Your perhaps most taught, read, famous story is the wonderful
The Sky is Gray.
Sky is Gray. And the last, or if it's not literally the last line, it's on the last page. You're not a bum, you a man.
It's the last line.
Is it the last line?
The last line.
That's how I remember it, but things fade. That theme, the theme of taking the young black boy and making that child do right, making that child be a man instead of a bum. That is a theme that moves from book to book.
Oh yeah, right.
Obviously, something right the center of your your mind, right at the center of your heart.
Well, when I was my aunt who raised me was crippled all her life. She never did until I was 15, until I went to California. She could not. She never did walk, and but she did everything for my brothers, for me, my brothers, my sisters. She washed the clothes, she in an old wash tub, because we didn't have washing machines or anything. She cooked our food. We had to bring the wood and the stuff to the burning stove, and she cooked our food and disciplined us too. But we had to break our own switch to come and bring it there and get out on our knees and take our punishment like that. But I was the oldest, and my responsibility was to look after the others. I had to be the man of the house when I was a small child growing up, and I had to take care of her as well as my other brothers and sisters. I had to be the one, the strong one at all times. Whatever that needed to be done, field work or the garden or feeding the chickens or whatever needed to be done, going into the swamps and pulling the end of a saw at 12 years old. That is my duty to do those things. And I was to be the man from a small child.
You're not, I mean, when you talk about your own attitude about fiction and so on, I mean, you disavow the overtly political.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the human.
You're right, yes. Mm-hmm.
But the temptation for you, you tell me, of course, but the temptation must have been very strong to use your fiction in a more overtly political way. When I say political, I mean to in the sense that Richard Wright, for example,
right,
would more overtly social criticism. But that's a temptation that basically you've resisted. What is it? Is it a strong temptation, and have you?
It's there, but it's sort of a more subterranean. It's below the thing. It would drive people, but it's not the thing that is overt. You'll find that in Miss Jane Pittman, the latter part of Miss Jane Pittman,
Yes.
And other stories as well, I suppose. You'll find this, in the Bloodline stories, especially that last story in Bloodline, Just Like a Tree. You do find these people, but I was much more interested in the character and how this affected the people rather than standing out. And I have different views about fiction. Some people feel that you should write that protest novel, and I feel that yes, I need content, but I need form, and I need the human spirit. I need that individual to put over my point for me. And I feel that if I wrote as well as I possibly could, and truly and deeply as I possibly could, if that did not affect you politically or change your attitude, your mind, then I don't know what else I could do. I didn't know anything else to do. I was never a quote politician, but I do believe in the human spirit, and if the human spirit cannot be changed by my showing you that here's a human being, and here's a suffering, and here is their daily work, their daily lives. If that doesn't affect you, then the other, I didn't know what else to do. The other writer can choose his direction in which to write, but I was never a Jimmy Baldwin or a Richard Wright. I was never one or the other.
Well, how is that in terms of the black writing community in America? You must hear, you've had a long career.
Oh, yes.
You've heard from James Baldwin on this issue. Not from Richard Wright, I don't. Possibly, but probably not.
No.
Have you been required at some point or other to defend yourself, explain yourself?
Many times. I mean, back in the '60s, I was attacked more by young, black students than I was by the white students, because they felt that I should have write the same thing that, say, the Richard Wright or many of our writers in Chicago were writing about at the time. I remember I started writing the Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman in 1968, and at that time there was a lot of protests going on. At San Francisco State. That's when Hayakawa was president over there at that time, and they demand, and the black students and the white radicals and all of them, they were demanding certain things, and of course I was 100% behind it, but I was writing the Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, and I was not on the campus. So they asked me, okay, Gaines, when are you going to join? And I said, well, I'm writing about this little 110-year-old lady, and I think she's going to make a difference. I really think she'll make a difference. And they would say, listen, man, we're not interested in the 110-year-old people born in slavery. We're talking about the now thing. I said, well, this is what I want to do. And I think if I do this well and truly enough, it will have the same effect that you're having now. And this is how I felt about all of my writing. I've been in some demonstrations, but I was not never a leader or never a follower. I went in at times, but I was never one who stood out for all the political action at all time. And I've been criticized for that from the '60s and even to now when I'm interviewed by certain critics.
Is that right?
Oh yes, right.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I wouldn't expect it anymore.
Yeah, they would ask me these questions. How did you feel about such and such a thing at such and such a time? And didn't you feel that you should have been there at such and such a time? And I try to explain to them what I was doing.
Well, the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman it may have been until A Lesson Before Dying your most popular success,
yes,
because there was this wonderful made for television movie.
It was, yeah.
I've seen it. I like it. Did you like it?
I like it very much. I think Tracy Keenan Wynn, who's the son of Keenan Wynn, and the old man, I forget his name right now, but grandson of this old guy. I think he did an excellent job. But that film was made in 1974. It was shown in '74. And at that time, the producers did not know how the white public would take a film, such a controversial film made especially for television. They did not know how they would take this. So the book covers 100 years. The film gives us 110 minutes. So they didn't want. We have about a minute to a year there, a little minute and 10 seconds to a year. They just did not want to put all of this money behind it to stretch it out into several hours, as what would happen to Roots later.
Right.
2-3 years later, when they made Roots, they realized that, hey, a good film, controversial or not, people are going to watch it. Right. Because with Miss Jane Pittman, I think we set a record for watching a movie for television at the time. We went to the Emmys. We won 9 Emmys. We led all Emmys for quite a while. So I think it could have been better if we'd had more time. Say we'd had 4 hours or 6 hours instead of 2. But I think within the 2 hours, I think he did a very good thing. What he had to do with the 2 hours of showing of script was to concentrate entirely on Miss Jane, whereas there are so many other little subplots going on and development of other plots going on, which he did not have time to do.
Well, that's the nature of the beast, isn't it? But that's a wonderful closing scene.
Oh yeah, they walk to the fountain.
Where she totters up to the fountain. That's memorable. I mean, it puts an impression on your eye, and it stays. Is it true that there are people who think that Jane Pittman is a real person?
Well, I get people like that today. I get people talking to me like that. I was in a small school in Louisiana, 6 months ago, I guess 6-8 months ago, and a fella came up to me and he told me that he had seen her in somewhere in New York, I think a couple months or so before before then, and I was at another university, I forget now where, and a fella there held up a Bible, old worn Bible, held together with rubber bands, red rubber bands, and he said, "This Bible was given to my folks by Miss Jane Pittman. This Bible." And this man was serious. He was very serious about that. And I said, "Well, okay." I didn't want to argue with the fellow because I didn't know how far this guy would go.
Tell him you invented Miss Jane Pittman?
I didn't tell him that, but I didn't know how far he would go. But I remember when the book first came out, I did have a couple of magazines to call me for a picture of Miss Jane when they wanted to review the book. They called for a picture. I just told them, I said, "Listen, Miss Jane is a creation of my imagination. Miss Jane is not a real person." And I could hear the person say, "Oh my God," because what they'd already done, they'd already written the review. Now they wanted as a true character. Now they wanted the picture to go along with the review.
Oh my God.
So, but
they thought it was as told to Ernest Gaiman.
Right, yeah. They've always said, "Well, was that your aunt? Or was that your grandmother?" So my aunt had been dead, and my grandmother's still alive at that time, but it was no one else. I created it.
Boy, I know.
The character.
It's like an Elvis sighting.
Yeah, right, yeah, right. They see him all the time. And they see Miss Jane every so often.
And they mean it.
Yeah, they mean it. Sure, they mean it. Yeah.
That's an interesting. I don't know that you and I can solve the psychosocial question here as to why people need to do that kind of thing, but they do.
I remember when that book first came. When I wrote an article for the New York Times, I think they call it Back Page or whatever it's called, and I tried to. I was saying that Miss Jane is fiction, and I got all kind of letters from people. You know, we don't want it to be fiction. Little ladies writing me these letters. That's not fiction. We will not accept it as fiction.
Well, it's a wonderful story, and people want it to be true.
True.
And that's the nature of it.
Yeah.
Your most recent book, and a book that Alabamians are now very familiar with because it's been made into a play, and as well as a film.
Right. Yes.
But the play, A Lesson Before Dying, has been running in Montgomery, and the book is widely being read around the state, as it is obviously elsewhere. This book, that a young black man, college educated, has returned to the plantation, to the home place, and is teaching in that church as a school teacher.
Right.
But he doesn't want to. He wants to move on.
He wants to run away.
And that brings up a question that you've touched on as a number, obviously a number of African American writers touch on, and that is, here's a young fella who's got a future. He wants to go out into the great world, and there's a sense of what does he owe? What is his responsibility to the people who raised him and the place he was raised? I don't think it's fully settled in that novel. Do you? Tell me, what do you think about?
I don't know.
How does that issue?
I don't know if it can ever be settled. Well, I've been all, as I said, my folks have lived in that same parish now for 6 generations, and this is a thing that keeps bringing me back and holding me there. I've been asked, when will I write about? Since I've spent most of my life in San Francisco, when will I write about San Francisco? And I said, I've tried. I've tried to write about San Francisco. I tried to write about my Army experience on Guam, but I found that I was just imitating other people. It was something about the Louisiana soil, not about the South. I'm not writing about the South. I'm not writing about even northern Louisiana, but it's southern Louisiana, the little area that I come from, a little 30-mile radius that I come from. That's the only little place in the world that I can, that I know and that holds me. But throughout my work, there have always been those characters who've tried to move away. Miss Jane Pittman, in the beginning, remember, she tried to walk to Ohio, but then she doesn't get out of the swamps of Louisiana when she says, well, I must go back. And Catherine Cormier, she refuses to leave. I must stay here. And you find that throughout the work, throughout all my writing, there are those who go, and then there are those who must stay. You cannot go because you're needed here, and you must do the work here. You need it here.
Well, you've done both, haven't you? I mean,
well, I've tried.
Come and gone, and come back again.
Yes. I would not be here today had I not gone. I would not be sitting with you here today had I not gone. I don't think so. No.
A novel of yours that perhaps doesn't get as much attention, or if at least hasn't come my way as having had so much attention, is the In My Father's House, which I read with great pleasure. I thought it was a tormented little book. There you have a couple of questions that, not that they don't occur elsewhere as well, but that are specific to that book. One is, although you don't usually write overtly about the civil rights movement, a little bit in Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, and then In My Father's House, there is this sense, several places in your work, that the movement has lost momentum, or that as the generations that followed the 60s and early 70s haven't picked up, they don't have their shoulders to the wheel. Is that a fair thing to say?
I think so too. I think there are those who are, and there are those who are not. And in the case of the group that I was dealing with at that time, they just felt that this would be in the late 60s or 70s. I forget now exactly what year that In My Father's House take place. But there was that.
It was right after the assassination of King.
Yeah.
In the novel.
Right. Yeah, right.
He's been killed,
right,
and now they say.
Right, yeah. It's all over. Yeah, right, yeah. And I think that was the attitude of so many people at that time. What is the use, Forget it, the struggle. No matter how much you struggle, this is what's going to become of it. And you did have that attitude by many. But some of the older ones still hang in, and then some of the younger ones come along as well to do something. But I think there was sort of like the general feeling at that time. They want to become militant or just forget the whole thing, just make it as well as you possibly can make it, because we aren't going to change these people's hearts. That stuff has ended here with King's death.
In that novel, In My Father's House, aside from the larger social situation, you also have an intense family situation. That is, the Reverend has these children from his childhood, from his boyhood almost.
Right, yes.
He was a wild young man, and now some of those chickens seem to be coming literally home to roost.
Right, yeah.
I thought when I read that, this is right up there at the tragic. This is right up there with Absalom, or with a Greek tragedy.
That was my aim at the time, to try to write a tragedy, try to write a Greek tragedy, try to write the story of a great man who falls, and he has this weakness somewhere in the back, and he falls and refuses to get up. He refused to get up at the time that he should have gotten up, but relied on somebody else to say what his conditions are, until it was reached a point that it was a little bit too late for him. Many of our, one of the little themes I run in my work is that we were separated, father and son were separated on the slave blocks and the slave quarters. And it's difficult for them to come back together until that father can be the true father symbol, a true father. Many of my young male characters, most of them without fathers. And it's not only the biological father, but that father, the judge, that father, that representative in Congress, or that father, the president of the United States, who talks about black leaders. Well, he's the leader of all citizens of the United States. And this youth, this black youth, does not see that father figure there. He does not see it in Congress. He does not see it when he goes into court. A judge sitting back there is not a father figure of his. And the attorney who's defending him, it's not his father figure. So this is the absence of father in the book. It's not only the biological father, but that other father that should be there for all our citizens. And in the case of this, in My Father's House, it is, the biological father is much more up in it. He's always the forefront, but the other father that the kids are that is missing is that other the father of justice, the father of justice.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. It isn't only writers and English professors who are symbolists. Every symbols are real. As they're fighting in South Carolina today to take down or leave up cloth. But it means these father symbols in your work are very important, or their absence is equally important.
Yes. That makes the young man the father, and so much. And as I see it, in cases of the black youth, he becomes he's almost the father figure. He has to take over, always taking over, and the mother says that you're the father, you're the man of the house, you're the man, and you must be the man of the house because their father is gone. And it's all if the father is there, after a while, he started to look up to the son, because the son has already gone a little bit farther than the father had ever had a chance to go. So the son becomes the father now. Oh, the father, yes.
It's almost unfair to ask writers this, but I'll do it anyway, because I think I'm hearing the answer. Is one of your books your favorite? The child that you secretly love the most?
No, I don't have one.
No, not that
one?
one?
I really don't, because, oh no, not In My Father's House is not the one.
No?
No. I've had more difficulty with In My Father's House. I know Faulkner once said that the child that causes the most problem, the one you love most. Well, In My Father's House caused me more problem than anything else, twice as much problem as Miss Jane Pittman or any of the other books. No, I just feel that in each book, I have something different from, say, the other book. For example, Miss Jane Pittman covers 100 years in time, big panoramic view of history and folk and whatever. And A Gathering of Old Men covers only one day.
One afternoon.
So,
sure,
yeah, one
yes,
afternoon.
Absolutely.
So it has things that I can concentrate on much more than, say, Miss Jane Pittman. But Miss Jane Pittman has this panoramic view that I can cover, which I cannot do in A Gathering of Old Men. So I love parts of Miss Jane Pittman, of course, and I love parts of A Gathering of Old Men. I love what I could do in that one day. I love the tragic thing of In My Father's House, or the love story of Catherine Cormier. Of Love and Dust, the wildness, this radical, this rebel, and Marcus. So I love them all. They're all my creation. I love all of them. And I hope that they are, as your children are, that they all have different little personalities. They're all part of you, But at the same time, they all each have his own little personality.